as we go. Hold on. There you go.
See how this webinar is being live streamed on the TV. I would now like to call this meeting of the Narragansett Regional School District School Board to order. And if everyone will please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just as a reminder, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. It's viewable on our Facebook and YouTube pages. I would just, before we get started into session, did want to check and see if everyone is okay if we move executive session up in the agenda. I'm thinking right after public input, but before FY23, FY24 budget. And that's simply because what we're going to do is leave the room for executive session, have a discussion, but then we have to return for a vote in that way. Because we have to return to a vote, I think it'll just be a little bit more streamlined if we move executive session up in our meeting. Are there any objections to that, just moving that around? Okay, great. All right, so then we will proceed with regular business. So we'll start with the meeting minutes of the October 19th meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve the October 19th, 2023 minutes as written.
Second.
Motion by Hank and second by Sean. Any questions or comments about those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes, so those are unanimously approved. Moving on to bills and payroll. The warrants were signed, so I would accept a motion or entertain a motion to accept the bills and payroll warrants as presented. So
Second.
motion by Heather, second by Sean. Any questions about those payroll? Yes. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, and I say yes. So that was also unanimous. And so we will look over to our student representative tonight. We look forward to an update.
Hi, everybody. So I don't have a whole lot to update on. Last night was the juniors versus seniors PowerPoint game for the students. That was really fun. Tomorrow there's a breakfast at Crimson Common for the recipients of the Adams Scholarship. And tonight, in addition, there's a meat raffle at the American Legion in Wallowville for the senior class. That's kind of what's been going on and what is going to be going on in the coming days. And then, holiday break, Thanksgiving break's coming up. Everybody's really excited for that.
Excellent. Public input, is there anyone who would like to give us?
My name is Jeff Bennett, and I am live in Templeton. Just two quick things. One, looking at the budget of 24 and considering 25, and noticing people, assuming parents, questioning the fees that the kids have to pay to play in sports and so forth. I would simply ask, as a resident, and I have no kids in school and never will. I would just like to see an honest to goodness budget assessment that is true, that will actually support the school district. When I came through here, I ran cross country and track and never paid a penny extra to do those activities. They were covered in the school budget. I don't think it's right or fair that parents get a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 property tax bill, and then they got 2, 3 kids in school, and I want to play soccer, I want to play basketball, I want to do baseball, I want to do gym, I want to cheerlead, whatever. $300, $200, $400, they're paying an extra $1,100 for their kids to come to school and take part in sports. That can be an important part of the process of going through this building. So I would ask you in your 25 budget to please consider that. It's not fair to nickel and dime people like that. Just my thoughts, my view, when you consider the 25 budget. And I do pay attention to it, as some people know. On a happier note, this past Tuesday, I came to this school and I happen to be a veteran. It's no big deal, just something I did. But I had the privilege, and I mean it is a privilege, to meet the fifth grade class, again, my third year, along with their teacher, whom I consider a special teacher, Miss Lisa Damon. And to meet them, and they do a Veterans Day project. And it's a really neat, big deal. This year there was, I think 15 to 18 veterans. Last year there was 11. The year before that, there was 3 of us. So try to make it bigger. It's a very informal thing. We get to meet the kids talk to us. I don't know who gets the bigger kick. What's more important, us meeting, veterans meeting the kids, or the students meeting us. Either way, it's a very neat, awesome, special event. And it's also, I think, important that they learn and are introduced to that Veterans Day is more than a day off from school, even though 8, 9, 10 years old, it's a cool thing to get a day off from school. But, and I just wanted to come here and ensure that you all know, and the people in TV land, especially the parents, know the cards, the comments, the questions, the attentiveness of these young kids is something very special. I hope to be back next year if Miss Diamond does it again. And again, the cards that they give, and people need to know this. It's real casual. It's not a big formal event like, we got the speakers and you stand here and we come in, we meet the kids, and they came into the auditorium and they just kept coming and coming. It's a big class. Awfully appropriate. It's the loudest Pledge of Allegiance I have heard at a meeting. It makes a town meeting sound like you're in church. It really is. It's really neat. And after the kids were gone, Miss Damon was talking to just us veterans, and she related a story or a thing that happened, and that's hers to tell. I'm not going to go there. But it convinced me, or gave me the thought that it's another reason, besides her father being a veteran, of maybe why she puts in this extra effort to introduce these kids and inspire them to do the things that they do. And if you get a chance, the box of cards and some of their they gave some of the kids, last year they did it, and this year they did it. They gave some of the Halloween candy out. And I got to talk to them, not give up all their chocolate. That's a bad thing. But I came here just tonight to let you all know that, and I've stated in the past that whenever I get an opportunity to speak to that and let people know that these kids do that, I will do it. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the other veterans. And I want people to know that, because it's a really neat, special thing. And the kids, they come up with some stuff, and I mean that in a good way. It's a really good event, and I want to thank my buddy Chris Casvan over there and Miss Lisa Damon for allowing us to come in, interrupt the school day a little bit, and meet these kids and get this out there, and know that, in my opinion, a lot of the garbage and stuff that is put forth in schools, either state mandates, the curriculum, whatever it may be, there is something special happening in Narragansett, and people need to know it. And it's really, really appreciated. So, thank you.
Okay, NDEA is not here tonight. So seeing as we all agree to move executive session up, we are going to now enter executive session. I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session as per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, for reason number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation with the UFCW and/or the NDEA if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. And I do. The meeting will return to open session immediately following. Second. Motion by Sean, second by Heather, and then we'll do roll call. So Hank.
Aye.
Sean.
Aye.
Aye. Kat. Aye. Jeff. And I say yes. So we will enter into executive session and then we will return. Just a reminder, the mics will stay live. So as we'll go to the library and then we'll return. right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience as we discussed some important matters. In order to conclude a piece of business coming out of executive session, we do need to have a vote related to some shifts in positions in central office. And so I would entertain a motion to accept the resignation of Victoria Cartier from the position of treasurer and to accept the recommendation of the district to combine the position of treasurer and accounts payable so the position can be posted. So second. Motion by Heather and second by Kat. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nick.
Abstained? And I say yes. So that was a yes from Hank, Kat, Heather, Jeff, and myself, and a no from Sean. All right. So coming back to our agenda, we left off at FY23, FY24 budget, and so I'm going to hand this over to Anne Marie to give us some of the needed updates.
So FY23, the EMD has come back certified at $587,861. So FY23 is officially closed.
Yes.
Yes.
What we just got from Senator Slotnick.
Yep.
We just got from the representatives, we just got the paperwork. We had earmarked $50,000 for us to put towards working on our HVAC projects. So we just got the paperwork, so that money will be coming and move forward with the project we had planned.
Anything else on FY24 or?
We have the town last week, the town of Templeton voted, to give us $277,000 of their ARPA funds for, we had submitted 2 years ago, some projects to fall under the different, categories that the ARPA funds would be used for. So they are, the 277,000 covers some drainage problems that we're having. It covers a subsidy for members of the town of Templeton who attend extended day. So for each family, depending on the dollar amount and how many families at the time, will get a subsidy that will give them a credit on their bill for extended day. We have some switches for the IT department that need to be replaced and updated.
Switches, HVAC. Yeah, no, it's.
Yeah, those for projects that we're going to use that money for.
Well, thank you very much to the town of Templeton. That's great news that we have some of those ARPA funds. That's fantastic. FY25, I'm just leaving this on here as a general reminder to everyone because there are a number of meetings. We have a number of folks who this will be their first time going through the budget cycle. So just a reminder, and Susan, remind me, February 8th, how are we doing for the multi-board meeting?
I've heard from 10% folks
Okay,
from the selectmen and their finance or advisory committee. The town administrator Philipson has gotten in touch that she will be there. I have not heard directly from the FinCom in Philipson or the selectmen themselves. I did reach out to them, so.
okay. Do you think we're ready to sort of call it, like this is the meeting date and re-extend that meeting invite to them, so that they know that it's happening? Hopefully they're able to attend. Okay, great. That is the February 8th. So it was a standing meeting. We're just, slightly changing the plan for the February 8th meeting so that we can focus on the multi-board, which is where we don't actually have an approved budget at that point. It's where we come together with the towns in our district and we give them a preview of what some of the things that we're expecting.
Okay.
So by that point, we have some ideas, but we don't have a fully approved budget just yet. It's just so that we can have that conversation, what's happening for them, what's happening for us, and just get everybody up to speed.
Okay.
Oh,
So these are the topics for each of those meetings that are already stated.
Exactly. So, and some of these are specific to finance and facilities, but just wanted to kind of generally outline the process. So February 8th would be that multi-board meeting. February 20th would be an additional finance and facilities subcommittee meeting to finalize the budget within that subcommittee. March 14th would then be the preliminary budget hearing, which would be in this meeting format, where Dr. Cassian generally gives a presentation and we have, those preliminary discussions. And then the actual budget hearing with the approval of the budget, happens on March 21st. Anything else to do with budget that I'm missing? All right. Business managers report. So I'm handing it right back to you, Adrian.
So the general fund, I've spent a lot of time with, Felicia, our accounts payable. And we've gone through and reached out to like principals and directors and tried to anticipate as many the different invoices or renewals that will be coming between now and June 30th. Encumbered a lot of stuff. So right now we have a pretty good bottom line. I don't anticipate squeeze, at least not in the near future. Maybe if something drastic happens after Christmas, possibly, but we've worked really hard to try and estimate what's gonna come in the future. So that is doing really well. Grants, there's nothing to report on because there's nothing new ones. They're just getting spent down now as the year goes on. And the revolving ones are just revolving.
Moving into new business, I don't see that we have any surplus items for tonight. Nothing came in. Okay, just reconfirming. Okay, so out-of-state field trips. So I know that some discussion was started during the last meeting about the ecology school trip, but since then we've also had some folks come forward for the DC trip. So is there someone who would like to kind of give an overview of these, kind of talk through them, or would you like me to kind of give an intro? Open up, it's okay.
Do you want me to jump in?
If you would, yeah.
Sure. So we run the DC trip typically every year. It's well aligned with our curriculum, and it's become essentially a tradition for our students. We run it with Von Rodder Travel. That's the name of the travel agency. You'll see the itinerary attached to the field trip form in your file. One of the things you may know, if you noticed this trip in the past, typically is not run in June. We are adjusting the date of the trip based on feedback we received from the community. We typically held it in March and people were requesting that it be pushed back later in the year for a variety of reasons. One being that it provides a longer window for students and parents to support fundraising efforts and raise money for more students to be able to attend. It also eliminates any conflict with the MCAS testing window and senior week, so that we can free up and provide administrators to attend the trip as well, which in the past that's been difficult when it's been held at the other dates. So by pushing that back, we're both responding to feedback we received from the community as well as just some logistical pieces in terms of running that trip after some things have taken off. There's not as much instructional learning lost time later in the year that will impact assessment windows. So that's of note. And again, with the more time after the holiday window for fundraising, folks have asked for that as well. Gosh. That's about all I have. I'm just double checking here some notes. So they're seeking approval, of course, because it's an out-of-state field trip. If you have any other questions, be happy to answer them. It connects very well with our topics in our 8th grade civics curriculum course.
Just ask.
I just want to know, like, if kids don't have enough money to go, are they allowed to still participate? Is there like a coverage, like a cost coverage if they can't afford it?
So there's a lot of fundraising opportunities and hopefully better.
Yeah, right now we're in the process of, the kids are out there, they're selling calendar raffle chances, and there's plenty of prizes for that. And not to mention, there are other organizations outside of the district, Millicent Youth Supporters. They offer scholarships to students who may need help. And also as a class, there's never been a student turned away for financial hardship, ever, from anything we do, so.
Ecology school trip?
This is a redo, so before you. It's what I believe. Correct. Ecology school application, it looks eerily familiar to the last one, it's, the dates are correct. Of course, the fundraisers, none of that was going to be changed. Soccer Maine, May 20th, return date, May 24th. Again, we talked quite a bit about it last time. It's a pretty familiar trip. So I'll just leave it at that. If there's any questions beyond what we talked about last time.
Any questions from anyone about either one of these field trips? So I did just want to take a quick moment to review a couple of the policies that are related to field trip approvals. So policy JJH, per this policy, all student trips which include late night or overnight travel must have prior approval of the school committee. Initial approval by the school committee is required before engaging students in fundraising activities. The school committee will also consider the educational value of the trip in relation to the cost prior to granting initial approval. Overnight trips should offer significant educational benefits to students that clearly justify the time and expense of the trip. Such trips should be appropriate for the grade level. Final approval will not be granted until all preparations for the trip have been completed, including but not limited to all logistical details involving transportation, accommodation, arrangements, and fundraising efforts. The school committee requires that final approval will be sought no less than 30 days prior to the scheduled trip. Doing well there. Teachers and other school staff are prohibited from soliciting for privately run trips through the school system and in the schools. The school committee will only review for approval school sanctioned trips. School committee will not review or approve trips that are privately organized and run without school sanctioning. And then there is also policy JJHR related to certain travel regulations. So this covers transportation, trip scheduling, and fundraising in further detail. And so I will not read that one because it's extra long, but since we do have members, it's always good to bring policy forward and to make sure that everybody's aware that, these are the policies that govern the decisions that we make and the things that we consider. So that being said, and not seeing any more questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the ecology school and DC field trips as presented. So moved. Motion by Kat, and did I hear a second from Hank? And a second from Hank. So any questions or comments about these field trips?
Just really happy we do them still.
Yeah, they're pretty fabulous.
I've been on 3 of them, they're really great, the DC trips.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, seeing no further questions or comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? And I say yes. So those 2 trips are approved unanimously, and we're excited for all the fundraising we may do. We know that you will come and hit us up, so we look forward to it. Okay, MASC conference. So there were actually 4 of us at the conference. Unfortunately, 2 of those folks were unable to be here tonight. But we did at least want to sort of share with folks. And Heather had the pleasure of representing us for resolutions in a short 4-hour meeting during the conference. Do you want me to kind of just give a quick overview and then you do resolutions?
So you do conference, I'll do resolutions.
All right, beautiful.
Shares.
I like it. There we go. So the conference, speakers, topics were excellent. I mean, really, this is such a great way to get to know what lots of different districts are concerned with focusing on, as well as to hear from experts in the space, as well as, you know, the schools who have so-called done it before us. The speakers were excellent. There was so much great content. It's really difficult for me to like try to figure out how to summarize it all. So I'll just share a few highlights. So one session that I found particularly useful was around crisis communications. It was actually like a panel setup. And so there were a number of superintendents and one school committee member who were all answering questions around how they handle crisis communications in their district. It was really a fabulous session to hear like real time ways that those crises were managed, what they learned, what they would do differently, how they have reshaped their policies based on some of the crises they've had to manage. For school committee, the couple important things that I learned and heard from superintendents is that one of the most important things for school committee members to do in a crisis is not to react. Don't react online. Do not start messaging the superintendent or the assistant superintendent. The superintendent and assistant superintendent are very actively assessing and managing the status of safety for children and the status of safety for staff. And we are very much far down on that list. Additionally, those folks are really trying to gather accurate information. And so they very much want to communicate once they know that they have the accurate information. So our job is really to wait and support. The other thing that I heard recommended, and Dr. Cassavant and I had a quick conversation around this, is that actually one of the things that was recommended is that school committees and superintendents meet together to kind of set boundaries and expectations around that. So that may be something that we look into in terms of like a separate session outside of this school committee meeting here. So I thought that was a great recommendation. Another really fantastic session we had was actually a general session, and I meant to write, do you have the name of the, I forgot to write it down before the session. Anyways, that session was absolutely fantastic. Dr. Sure. Okay, I'll look her up. Yeah, she's someone we should. Yes, she's absolutely, she was a fabulous speaker and terrible with names, which is why I'm having an issue in a moment. I thought I had it down and I didn't. This was such a good session. She talked a lot about how people don't fear change, they fear loss. And how is it that we work with our districts and have those conversations actively, starting between ourselves in the school committee. And, she talked a lot about how adults want to be heard regardless of whether you want them to speak or not. So make sure that you make spaces for them so that their voices are heard and valued. So she had really fantastic data around there's a lot of focus from the state around MCAS and MCAS performance. But she had a lot of great information to share around the fact that when you're striving to improve your district's performance, that in fact, the first thing you have to address is making sure that those students have a safe place to learn. And thank you. The presenter was Dr. Darnisa Amante Jackson. She really was just a fantastic speaker. But one of the things that I heard coming out of this is that you know, at the point where you start to make the changes, it actually is another 4 or 5 years before you translate those into MCAS results. If you think about the state wishes you to have better delivery on those MCAS results within a year. And so she would just spend a lot of time talking about how those two things are, you know, fighting against each other. And then another really fantastic session was the general session for AI. And what does AI mean for schools? And that was a really good session as well around, you know, defining what AI is, how it works, and what does it mean for our schools and our classrooms. You know, what does it mean for cheating? How do you detect cheating when someone has entered a question into AI, as well as a really fantastic story around, I guess the mascot of MIT is the beaver, but AI has just made up all kinds of stories around the beaver that aren't actually true, that are based on, you know, the set of words that AI processes in order to deliver answers. You know, and his big recommendation was around that we do actually have the toolkits in order to address these new technologies. We just forget that we do, because what was it that math teachers did when calculators went from being really basic to being scientific calculators? So like the sessions really dug into the topics. I really just wish there had been more time for us to talk about everything we were learning, because you just went from session to session to session to session until 9 o'clock at night, by which time your brain was really tired. But really the sessions were fabulous. It's such a good job with speakers this year.
So while everyone else was having fun, the first day of the conference, which was Wednesday, just plug up the date because I did not send that the date to you. So it was Wednesday, November 8th. I attended as your delegate, voted on the resolutions as we had discussed. The quick and easiest first one was the proposed amendment to the MASC bylaws that was giving them 3-year sunset provision. So these resolutions that are being brought forth by just like their subcommittee or by member districts aren't just constantly piling up. Giving those a chance to say, okay, those have sat on our desk for 3 years. If it's important, or you know, a member of MASC is going to have to bring this to the resolutions committee if we want to work on this again. So that was the easy yes. There was only one other easy yes, which happened to be resolution 2, which was the dealt with regarding investigations and recommendations for transportation bidding procedures. That was an easy unanimous yes. All of the rest had lengthy discussions. Resolution 1, stable funding for Medco, that was minimal discussion. The final vote of the delegate assembly was a yes. Resolution 3 was regarding regional transportation. Resolution was brought forth by the Hampden-Wilbraham Regional School Committee, and that one, even when we were discussing it here, we had to read it a couple of times because it's not what you think when you read it first really quick. What they're looking for is a regional district like us that doesn't receive the full funding like us, and they were trying to come up with a creative way to have a way to really count their students, who's taking the bus, who's not taking the bus. They were going so further as to say that those who were not, those who were taking the bus, they wanted to be able to charge them the difference of what they eventually do get at for the cost of transporting that student and what it costs. Now, the student's situation, family wanted to opt out, they could opt out and not need to pay that difference. That bus would never pick them up. Stand there on the bus stop in the pouring rain because their car broke down and they were not going to get picked up. That was one of the comments that came from several of our other, cohort districts. So that one was voted down. That resolution was not on the table for MASC to work on. Resolution 4 was about diversity, equity, inclusion. That one was the one looking for, there was to MASC, therefore we resolve MASC recommends all districts adopt position of a DEI coordinator. That one probably had about an hour and a half discussion with several amendments attempted and failed and flopped back and forth. In the end, that was tabled. And by tabled, it means once the delegate assembly, ended their meeting, that resolution is gone. If someone would like to bring that up, they will need to bring that up as a resolution to the resolutions committee in the future year. Resolution 5 was regarding the Mass Building Authority a resolution. That one had some amendments. One item was that the first of the therefore be it resolved, the cap was adjusted to reflect what had happened in the legislature since the resolution had been written. That's an easy, just reflect the current state. An additional be it further resolved was added via amendment that there should be an evaluated tiered system to separately assess the cost of 1 elementary, 2 comprehensive high schools, and 3 vocational, technical, and agricultural schools. So those notes, they will come out with when they approve their meeting minutes, those, if I'm missing any of the wording in there, which I've copied Susan on for our meeting minutes, because this was done in live time with furiously trying to type and keep up. So if I'm missing a period or word here and there, please take that with a grain of salt. The important thing being that, yes, that resolution was approved with amendments. Resolution 6 was about the School Bus Stop Alarm Surveillance Act and enforcement penalties. Lots of discussion on there. That one was also tabled. So that one is dead in the water. Resolution 7 related to MCAS was also tabled since the efforts are being made to add this as a ballot question. There are plenty of other resolutions on their docket regarding MCAS as well. So it's not a totally dead topic to them. Just this particular resolution was tabled. Resolution 8, safe storage of firearms. That one was voted yes with an amendment. It's the last one, so I'll read it and done. Therefore be it resolved that MASC recommends all districts urge their superintendent and staff to increase collaborative efforts with their local law enforcement agencies, public health agencies, and nonprofit organizations to create appropriate joint communication to parents and guardians that explains the importance of their obligations under mass safe storage law, to secure weapons within their homes and vehicles in order to protect children and teens with unauthorized access to unsecured firearms. The gist of it was that the person who brought this amendment forward, representative, they were looking to have this be a collaborative. This isn't just on a superintendent to create the document. It's to do what he already does, which is collaborates with our towns and safety and health and everything else. So that was voted yes. And the meeting was made and was adjourned.
So any questions for myself or Heather about either the conference or the resolutions? All right, so I don't think we have any unanticipated items. So Dr. Casvan, I will hand this over to you to go through whatever you have to share with us tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair. And well, just looking. So just how to do both. So some of this was already discussed, but I wanted to honestly, sincerely thank Templeton for just considering the projects and their ARPA monies. Again, we met 2 years ago. These were needs that we had. And, again, it's really the town's money, or at least it's the money that they can point to what they need. And we're just appreciative that they heard, what we wanted to do. As you've heard, except for the one, which is offset for the town of Templeton's parents who are in extended day, they're all capital projects that would, I guess, conceivably end up on some type of request to our member towns, especially around the HVAC, which we have been really working hard to just complete in terms of updating. So I just wanted to make sure I said that publicly. Veterans Day, Mr. Bennett, really, I'm not going to be able to outdo him. I'm not going to try. I say this every year, but one of the many draws I think Narragansett has, at least for me, is how proudly they value veterans. Being a veteran, I will tell you that mattered to me when I came aboard. It means a lot, especially to our veterans, our local veterans. But when you start talking about veterans, and you start looking at recognizing them, thanking them, etc. What that really is about is it's about how you value community, and that was already inbred here. So it's not like something I brought, or I mean, it was here, it was alive, and it has carried through. So I'm always very proud of the way we honor our veterans every year, at both times. And they know the importance of both days, and Veterans Day and Memorial Day. One is for thanking, one is for memorializing. So again, I won't try to outdo Mr. Bennett because that would be impossible. So I want to talk about something that's, again, came up kind of in an interesting way. As you know, the state of Massachusetts, filed a bill, and no one pays for lunch. Okay, so lunch is free. We know. Although we still say to our community, please, please, please fill out those forms, because I need those forms, because it helps in a lot of ways, but it does identify, folks who are eligible, and I'm going to get to fees here in a second. Interestingly, the feds changed the threshold for what they call CEP, right, which is a Community Eligibility Program. So before the state of Massachusetts decided to pay for lunches, they, remember all the forms, please, please, please fill out the forms. The threshold used to be 40%, and that's the minimum. And so at 40%, you would be able to enter into the CEP program, which meant that if the building's student body was 40% or more eligible through the forms, then you would receive a certain status. And back in the day that the state would pay, we'd pay 60% and the state would pay 40%. It's how we all operated forever. Well, that 40% and is kind of a high bar. Well, at least at first, for a while, it was a kind of a high bar to hit 40%. Now we have some neighboring communities that are well above 40%. But Narragansett hovered in the area of 28, 29, 30-ish% when we were doing this back in the day. Well, we received a letter this summer at first from Templeton Elementary School. This is before we actually even started with gathering the information, and we were informed that we were at 43% without even doing the initial paperwork, for the pre-implementation lunch forms, right, verification forms. So they gave us this eligibility, said, hey, look, you're CEP eligible. If you sign into this, although you don't have a choice, which we found out later, what's going to happen is that if the state should do away with their promise to pay for lunches, then you're good for 5 years. So you're good. This is a great way to kind of hedge your bet, so to speak. Then we found out that they lowered it to 25%. So the student population only be 25. So remember, it was 40. Templeton Elementary just squeaked in under the old threshold. Now it was at 25%, which then we received another letter this last week or this week that said, you have one or more schools based on your basically your mid-year submittal that meets that criteria. And we found that the middle high school was at 33.27% eligible. Okay. So ultimately, what happens is that when you now remember 25 is now the new threshold. Once you become a CEP district or school, you no longer even have to do the forms. because the state has determined for the next 5 years that, look, we understand that you're already at this level of folks who which qualify in state or federal regulations of free reduced lunch. You don't even have to fill out the forms. Okay. And so we grappled with that a bit. And we looked at, okay, so what do these forms do for us, right? And okay, no one has to fill them out. That's awesome. Okay. But what it did, and what it has done for most communities around us, but especially us, because we're talking about us, is it identified how much money, if a person was either free, reduced, or full pay, and what they would pay in terms of their user fees for any extracurricular activity, which, sports, whatever, extracurricular, was that theater, et cetera. So that no longer exists. So before, when we thought it was 40, we're still having people do the forms because the state was really asking us to keep doing that because it was beneficial. Okay. Now we are no longer going to be collecting forms. And thus, we don't know, nor will we know, who truly is free, reduced, or full pay. And it was getting hard anyway because people were like, well, I already have free lunch, so why would I fill out this form? But people help us out and they fill out the forms. Getting back to the point of, what do user fees do? So if I just stick with athletics for a second, I'm going to use the round number of $100,000, right?
It's not that.
It's like 80.
Probably like about 50 or 60.
Oh, 56, sorry, okay. So we receive around $50,000 or $60,000 every year in user fees, okay, which offset athletics or extracurricular. No one would like more than me, I suppose, but there's a lot of people equally that would love not have to pay these fees. We don't like to do it. We don't like to ask for it. It's cumbersome. It's embarrassing for some. We've never turned anyone down who could not pay. Even if they did not have the form or whatever the case may be. That's never happened. But it does beg the question about, well, if it's $50,000 or $60,000, whatever it is, in terms of money that we are in this revolving fund, which we do a number of things like pay coaches, possibly whatever it is, then that would have to enter on the general side, the general fund. Thanks. And so, and it does, it has some far-reaching, we're talking about all things, right? So not just, again, we stick with athletics, it's the largest, but it would mean all of them. We don't charge our students to get into games, as you know, so the gate is very, I think, we do know, but we have hundreds of kids, it seems like, running around during these football games, they don't pay. The adults have to pay, of course, et cetera. So we do have a little revenue coming in during the gates, but this will be something that will come up, I believe, and it should come up when we are in the budget discussions. Because one, many districts charge because they have to. Is there an ethical obligation? Is it helpful to parents? Of course, it's very helpful to parents. But that's something I think that the committee is going to need to grapple with, because now we really don't have a means to know, but the way we have set up our fee base, with the exception that if you were directly certified, which is the state telling us, because they send us a list of who's eligible for direct certification, generally they are receiving some type of state benefit. Other than that, we won't know. And so just to put it on the radar of the committee, it's not something that we need to discuss today. We are now a CEP district. All three of our schools have met the criteria and increasing. We've watched Lincoln High School go up quite a bit over the last, say, 2 years, and being at 33.27% is definitely well above the new threshold. So I just wanted to almost kind of marry the two, the comments and what we're going to have to be discussing as we move forward for the FY21. And by the way, there's no threat for the free lunch bill or to end anytime soon. So that's not what anyone's trying to signal. But if it should, we can still be covered. But they would be all cost.
CEP is actually federal, so what it means is, like, the state last year mandated that if you hit the 40%, you must become a CEP school. So they must have known that it was gonna be lowered to 25% going forward. And what that means is the feds, now that it's lower and when you become a CP school, the feds pay more of the reimbursement on your meal than the state does. So that's probably why it's mandated that you must choose it if you become eligible.
State can claw back some money now. Right, so if you're 40, they say, oh, feds, you've got it, right, so. Okay, so that's just something to put on your radar, and it was actually a timely piece. The insurance committee met, last week, and I'm gonna let Anne Marie take it, because I was at the conference, but if you want to
Yeah,
just.
so the insurance committee met, they voted to send the letter of intent to Minuteman to say that we are planning to get out for July 1. It's just intent, we have to send another letter, I believe, by February 15. But we also have 2 quotes for our insurance so far. We have a quote from Maya, and their quote is better than we anticipate we would get by staying in Minuteman. They have a 5% increase to the majority of our people that are on our health insurance. The big savings under the Maya plan is our retirees that retired through Worcester County, not our teacher retirees. They would see a big savings in their premiums, but in turn, it's the active employees on the majority of the plans that would see the 5% increase. We have another quote from a joint purchasing group called Mass Strategic, and they have a quote to cut our rates 5% across the board, which actually saves the district a few $100,000 over what we have budgeted this year. There's one caveat though, in order to get out of Minuteman Neshoba, there's an assessment fee because you have to pay for all of the runout claims, and that number, you do not know. It's a moving target because you can't. Our advisors have said plan for $300,000 to $500,000 over a 24-month period. But you don't know who's gonna go in the hospital or have triplets in June and what those bills cost, because it usually takes 2 to 3 months out before bills actually hit. So that's a big liability. And we found out today that Minuteman is considering dissolving because there are a lot of members that are in their group that are just like us seeking other quotes, because last year we had a 13.75 increase and they anticipate it will probably be something like that again. But because like on the meeting today, there's 5 communities that have submitted their letters out of like 18. And so the topic really at the forefront is, are they going to dissolve their joint purchasing group? So more to come on that, but we're working with the insurance advisory committee and going forward, letting them hear information about the plans and make their decisions and talk to their unions.
And shout out to Anne Marie and Chelsea Mason, who have been on top of this for the last year and a half. So we're positioned well this year. We're not, oh no, it might not be solid. We're well ahead. We have the opportunity to hear from folks in the city. So again, want to just make sure I recognize the hard work of both Chelsea and Marie. I think this happened kind of in the between meetings, but we, our nurse leader, Mariah Zwicker, who, handily carried us through COVID, and beyond, but, she submitted her resignation to us, last couple of weeks. And, she's going to take a position in one of the districts, and, she'll be sorely missed. Now, she was part of the enhanced nursing grant initially, and then took her basically on, took her in on the general budget side of things. Her responsibilities were many, but one of the primary things was she supervised the nurses. No one can supervise a nurse but a nurse. So I say that without, I realize folks get that, but it's not like, the superintendent, you're like, oh, I don't think you're doing a good job. Because the superintendent has no idea what a nurse does. So, or does the superintendent want to know? So what we've done is we originally accepted her resignation, and for the remainder of the school year, we're going to go back to a hybrid version of what we used to do, certainly in 2016 when I arrived here, is that we're going to take one of our nurses, and they're going to 2 days a week come out of the role of school nurse and help supervise the other two nurses and to do the things that a nurse leader needs to do in terms of managing the nursing services, and there's a lot to go with that. This is, we're doing so in this manner because according to the enhanced nursing grant, which currently funds I'm trying to think of the bridge coordinator, and nurse subs, etc. That person who's the nurse leader must be out of direct service to kids at least 0.5. So that's how we're going to satisfy the grant. So that way we're do so with fidelity. She'll be out of her building, quote unquote, for 2 days, or two days and some change. That will be covered with nurse subs. We have 2 consistent sub nurses that have been subbing at the elementary school. They know our kiddos, they know the routine. So in order to keep everything, at least for this fiscal year, moving, that is how we're going to operate. And then it'll be a larger conversation of whether or not we continue with the essential nurse grant, do we, or whatever the case may be. So again, it's a conversation. These things have kind of happened over the last couple of weeks, and we've had to make some adjustments, which we can. So 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 I just want to make sure that, you're aware of that. And Mariah's last day with us is, actually, she's going to carry us right through Thanksgiving. So I sent an email to the school committee in regards to the need of a reading specialist for right now, the elementary, and I would say the middle school, but right now, I say I don't know. Middle school. As you know, we were close. We talked a lot about this last year. I do have the email. Well, you have the email. In terms of the rates, et cetera, and I can try to toggle back to that. But what has happened is that we've had such an increase of students who require reading services that we're out of compliance in regards to small group reading instruction. We talked a lot about reading and literacy. The state is behind, it's where its targets. And so everyone is doing as much as they possibly can. Yes, this is an effect of COVID, absolutely, without a doubt. We know that, we talked about that at length. But given just the number of kids who come in, require services, we are going to need to look at that position, which we dabbled with last year, or at least we discussed, in some of our finance meetings and budget presentations. But we're now, when I say we're officially out of compliance. Going back to how you pay for that, Cassivan, we've identified some areas of all nurse leaders' salary. Quite frankly, we're being amount of that because she's no longer, she'll be November, she'll be in her position. That is something that we're going to need to, move pretty quickly. I did inform the union, the NDEA, that I would be having this discussion tonight. just because you know, by the way, Lisa she had car trouble as she was coming here. So she was planning and just couldn't make it. So she did let us know, oh my God, I'm not skipping it. I just can't make it. So I did send an email just so that no one was surprised that they heard this conversation, et cetera. But that's really pressing at this time. I'm not really sure where to go with the other stuff. I think we'll hold off, but certainly some topics for discussion in this December finance meeting will be, we can certainly discuss the reading teacher in depth, the registrar data specialist position, and the other piece to this, and they're looking at ways to add kindergarten paras. Okay, be clear, I want to make sure that's the wrong thing. Paraprofessionals who will work in the kindergarten. Okay, so I want to make sure I say that correctly. And because we work very hard, you know, with the USCW in regards to different job descriptions, et cetera. So we're the only district, this is old news, we're the only district that does not have paraprofessionals with kindergartens. This was part of the cuts when the failed override took place. This is all old news. Kindergarten is hard. We talked about that. I meet the kindergarten teachers last 3 weeks ago. We tried to work out some things where we can have someone in there the day, kind of spread the wealth. They're appreciative, but it's certainly not enough. It's something that we probably need to address. It's a lot of busy, as you know, in kindergarten. And when we start talking about skills, we can generally break off into small groups. We just generally don't have the opportunity to do that. That's something we can talk at our next finance meeting. Again, this was definitely on the list of needs identified last year that we took off the table in order to hit the number, so to speak.
And just so I can kind of recap for everyone, essentially, just so everybody understands, with the resignation of the treasurer, there was a bunch of discussion around, you know, how are we going to, what are the positions that are needed, considering our situations today? Where have we experienced cost savings because of retirements or other retirements or resignations, et cetera? And what is it that we need to do with those funds for the remainder of the year? So what we have decided to do is to have an initial conversation about that in finance and facilities, and then there will be a further conversation, and we'll go into more detail about this in the next school committee meeting, just so it's clear for everyone, because us as a school committee were getting a bit confused and we needed better details. So that is how we're going to move those conversations forward. I just didn't want anybody to be lost, but there should be a lot more detail upcoming in the next school committee meeting.
Pop-up was already discussed. Seniors absolutely trounced the juniors. I don't mean to be, but it was typical. But everyone had a great time. It was literally looked like it looked like a home. Those stands were packed. If you were there, you saw that. If you were not, I walked out of the town meeting and could not believe how many people were in the stands. So I was, and some of the football players decided that they could try to be cheerleaders. They could not. So let me be honest with you, the best athlete that we have in this entire district are our cheerleaders. I've said that before. People don't like it when I say it. I do not care. They are the best athletes we have, and they are going to the states. They're competing for the state championship this Saturday. I think it's Saturday. And so until someone can, bring home, or at least compete for a state championship, everyone will fall behind the cheerleaders as far as I'm concerned, and that is my official take on that. But more, if you could go for this form, which looks like this, it's the October 1. So it happened, October 1 happened. Yeah, and so what that means for all of us is that it generates kind of like the number. It's what we lock in on when we do our apportionment and like how many Phillipston kids, how many Templeton kids, etc. But This is a report that I've been doing for a while. Got it, you got it. And so I'm showing comparison by cohort, right? So, you know, you don't want to hear it, but guess what? The kindergarten class is the class of 2035. If that just doesn't make you sweat, I don't know, but that seems like, you know, gosh, but it's, you know, that's who they are. Just a couple takeaways from this, and again, it's in your package, so you can look at this. We are, when we start talking about foundation enrollment, which is the number of kids that the state calculates our, you know, Chapter 70 monies, which is any student that lives in Templeton or Phillipston that go to a public school, and it doesn't need to be Narragansett, so we talk about that a lot. That's not this, that's some of the numbers. But what you want to know is that we're growing. So remember, we could take a lot of special school choice students. Our number of residents have increased. Now, it doesn't look like it because it balanced out. So we're like 4 or 5 kids more, but that's because we can't take as many school choice kids because we're full. And we, of course, have to take our residents. We like to. This is going to be, when we start talking budget, you're going to talk, and we're going to need to talk about the buses. We're going to need to talk about that we already have a double run that goes into Baldwinville, and both of them are full. Don't believe the hype when someone says, I see those buses roll by empty every day. Not that bus. I will tell you that right now. They drop off X, and then they come back and get more kids. Not granted, in the afternoon, some kids have sports, etc. There are a lot of kids on the bus, and don't forget, we have to make sure that we assign a seat for every kid who's eligible outside of a mile and a half. There are a lot of kids in Baldwinville and other places. We're going to need to talk about transportation as we go forward. But as you can see, it never happens kind of evenly. This year, it's the class of 2032, which is the current 4th grade. They gained 10 new students from Templeton. 2 Phillipston kids, you know, less 2 Phillipston kids. We lost a school choice student. You know, so we now have a district total of 121. That is plus 8 resident total to 112. So they're the winner this year. But some of our other areas, like we know our class, the biggest class we have is the 5th grade, we're 132. They increased by 5, 3 from Templeton, 2 in Phillipston, and we lost a school choice kid. So my point is that we have 132 5th graders, and 126 of them are residents. That is the 5th grade that I just spoke about in regards to the reading needs, okay? So again, it's for your perusal. We do it by cohort in this way. And I'll just quickly go over November because we are in November. And if you go to the other, here we go, and I need to make sure I have it. Sorry. So, all right. So if you look at the November, and I'm gonna look up here, we have 1,480 kids in this district right now. District school choice is at 160. And if you go over, Molly, arrow over, and you down one of the tabs, and sorry, I'm not being clear. Actually, the comparison, so if you use the right arrow over there, so these are the kind of things that we have in month-to-month comparison. So it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you scroll down to the last number, right? I know what you're saying. You're saying it's only 3 kids, right? You only gain 3 kids over the lot. Well, yeah, it's plus and minus. We lost some school choice kids, right? And we gain more residents. You've heard this a lot, and I'm going to keep saying it. It's a wonderful problem. Kids stay in the district, they don't school choice out, and they're moving into this town, right? Or towns into our district. We are full. We have class sizes that are too large at the middle and high school. We have a senior who sits at the end, who could probably tell you about some of them. And we had tried to address it last year, and we just, you know, we tried to hold on. These are the problems that are going to have to be addressed this coming year. When I say this, without fail, there probably can't, I don't know, it's up to you. But I do not see us having the opportunity to, to, I think, not cut, but not to add. How about if I put it that way? The numbers just don't, they're there in front of you. And as usual, I will give you a class list, right? I give you a class number list about halfway through the year, which will be in a month or so. The high school, you already know, the elementary is easy. Okay, because you can see, oh, there's 32, whatever. But in terms of the high school classes, what we're offering, that becomes, it has to be a little bit more, so you have to do a special report for that. It won't come out through here. Okay, so there's my superintendent's report. I'd rather be a district that is gaining students, especially residents, always. I don't want to lose them. And that's exactly what is happening currently.
I'm gonna let folks ask questions just a second, and if Pat, you have to exit, no problem, we just have to know the time. That's all. Okay, yeah, that's exiting it. But thank you for all that information. Before we move on, are there any questions for Dr. Casvant about anything that he shared this evening? And we welcome student questions as well, if you have any. All right, well, thank you, Dr. Casvant. A lot happening at the moment, lots going on, lots of moving parts. So we will move on to curriculum and instruction. And so Molly, I'll hand this over to you.
I'm disappointed to tell you I did not have a data presentation tonight for the first time in a long time. Sorry. But I do have an update on school safety and professional development, which right now are going hand in hand. So if you recall, at the beginning of the year, we talked about our 3 big professional development focus areas for this year. Just as a reminder, they are literacy, creating a multi-tiered system of instruction for academics as well as behavioral support. And lastly, of course, was school safety. So those were our 3 big focus areas. We had a full day professional development session last Tuesday, November 7th. All staff for half of that professional development day engaged in professional development and training session with our local police department and fire departments to continue their work around ALICE and school safety. So our police department, fire department came in, teachers got to see a little bit about the backside of that and what happens when emergency calls come into our fire department, police department. So they got to get a little bit of the behind the scenes picture of what that looks like. We then, as a continuation from the trainings we did at the beginning of the year and our Navigate 360 online platform we use for ALICE training, we did simulations with our staff. And so they had a chance with our police and fire department to put into place what they've learned about situational awareness and decision-making in the midst of a mock emergency. And so we got really great feedback from our staff around those trainings. After those trainings were over, all teachers and instructional staff had an opportunity to be provided with resources that are student appropriate for the grades that they serve, and had time to sit with their colleagues and plan out what it would look like for them and when in the coming months they would introduce ALICE to their students. So as you know, we've been talking the last 2 years, we've really been focusing on professional development with teachers around ALICE. This year, we're continuing that, and now we are focusing on how to roll this out with our student population and our families and community as well. So in the month of January, teachers will be introducing ALICE to students and focusing on what it is and situational awareness. So no mock drills, no situations or anything, just informational. That will look different based on the grade level or age of the students. And then as we move through the rest of the year, we will be practicing not full drills with students, but walking them through various situations, including drills for staying in place, lockdown procedures, and evacuation, again, at a very developmentally appropriate level, and using resources that we've been providing for our teachers, as well as we'll be putting some information out to parents regarding that. The second half of the professional development day looked a little different in each building. So at TES, they had focused on reviewing behavioral tier 1 data and then unpacking and looking at strategies for de-escalating student behaviors in the classroom. At the middle school, they brought in a consultant from Keys to Literacy, who also was here on our October 6th PD day. And so that consultant had a chance to come back and as a follow-up, work to provide teachers with instructional strategies to support adolescent readers across any curriculum or subject area, specifically around introducing and developing vocabulary awareness, and reading comprehension strategies. And then our high school, as a follow-up to their October PD, where they really unpacked literacy data as a school, they did a follow-up series of instructional strategies that they rolled out for vocabulary acquisition and use across various subjects, which included some work with their literacy lead teacher support as well. So that's where we're at with our current professional development from our last PD day and our next steps for school safety rollout. So any questions? We also, I should say, while I don't have data, our administrative team has been looking at the data that we collect and the feedback we collect from teachers from these sessions. So we have some hard data we collect where they're actually ranking certain criteria for our professional developments. And then there's also open places for them to provide written feedback. We really are diving into that data and using that to help us make any adjustments we need for future professional development areas, both in the realm of academics and in this case, school safety.
Thank you very much, Molly. That sounds like it was a fantastic training session. I mean, hard. So please do extend our thanks to the, our community police officers, fire, et cetera, for joining us and supporting that, as well as our teachers, and administrators for sticking in, learning the hard things to learn. Because, those are tough topics, but it does sound like it was a good collaboration event.
Thank you, I will. And Steve Bliss, our school resource officer, of course, and Ashley Niggle, our assistant school personnel service director, were instrumental in really orchestrating and putting on that training. And they work so well together as a team. They really balance each other well, and our staff have a great time because they're both, of course, in addition to incredibly knowledgeable, they're fantastic presenters. So I'll extend that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So following up, we've got subcommittee reports. So I will start with finance and facilities. It feels like it was last month already, but it was only just 2 weeks ago. So looking at fiscal year 24 and 25, we reviewed, so Dr. Hassett has actually been doing a lot of data mining across like districts, which are also called dark districts, and local districts as it relates to salaries for teaching staff and for administrators. So, teacher salaries, for example, were compared to, as stated, like local districts, and the data was pulled from contracts, as well as being informed by superintendents. Overall, we do rank low, and particularly low at the highest tier. So we expect to have additional conversations about this going into the next budget cycle, as well as the NDEA. The previous negotiation did have a line item in there to talk about salaries for fiscal year 25, and so we expect those conversations to occur. We did also, as stated, compare admin salaries. Admin salaries were compared with local only. Again, we are not in alignment with what other districts are paying. So those are other critical conversations for us to dig into it, to have. As previously mentioned, what I want to do is make sure that we have numbers in front of us when we're talking about those details. So I think that that's a good thing to bring up at our next school committee meeting. Some of this was already shared by Anne Marie, so I'm just scrolling through. Some great news about our fields, particularly our baseball field. The drainage was fixed, which is a really big deal. It was very, very wet down there. And so now we have a dry field. And in addition, the dugouts are being replaced. They were really quite dilapidated. So those are a couple really excellent, excellent updates. They are, the contract for the track field renovation has been signed. We expect that project to start in late spring or summer. With some soil testing to commence sooner. We can confirm that will be a varsity field. Varsity what? We do not know yet, but it will be a varsity field. And then there was some discussion around the need for practice fields. So conversations around exactly what will happen there. But we did secure a price for some land clearing, about 3 acres, to secure more space for practice fields. Busing logistics to Gimlet Weight, et cetera, are quite prohibitive at this time. There's a lot of challenges with those logistics. So that's another great conversation to be having. Dr. Cassavant already talked about with facilities, what happened with ARPA funds. We are also working to get a quote on replacing the track itself from Cape and Island. We're doing that we're trying to network with some other districts that have done those replacements and just figure out, what can we learn and what can we do there. And yeah, generally just a lot of really great things happening. As far as other capital projects, the one we're really focused on is the roof for the middle and high school. And MSBA has reopened. I know that Anne-Marie, you had signed up for for a Zoom meeting to get some more info on how to get in.
It's going to, they're gonna open up the statement of interest in January.
Okay.
And then districts can apply. There's some criteria, like your roof, your roof has to be at least 25 years old in order to be eligible to apply. So ours is, once you apply, your application goes through a process, and if they deem that it's necessary, they'll assign you a consultant. The consultant will come out and do an evaluation of your roof. And then basically, if you apply now, you're not even going to start construction until FY 26 or 27. So it's a lengthy process to get through, but it allows you time to be able to meet the deadlines of your town meetings, to go to your towns. But that's all opening in January, and the superintendents are the ones who will get the notification, and they are the ones that ultimately apply for it.
Great. And or Jeff, anything I missed in terms of updates from finance and facilities, or did I get everything? District operations meeting was scheduled for this past Tuesday, but that was canceled. For labor management committees, the labor management meeting with the DEA was canceled. We did have a meeting with the work environment committee with the UFCW at the end of last month. Shauna would normally give that update, so I'll just quickly state that it continues to be a very productive meeting. Lots of participation from our UFCW members, bringing forth great topics, great discussion happening. So we're really excited to continue to see that relationship building in a positive direction. Shauna is also the liaison to CPAC. She did let me know that she was the only attendee at the last CPAC meeting, so she didn't have any updates for us. And then Kat is the liaison to PTO, and she just handed me her notes before she left, so I will share those. She said that the October event, which was watching a movie, the PTO observed that the kids really would prefer to socialize versus actually watching the movie. So they're considering possibly a fall dance with costumes. They're going to look at some numbers and, possibly thinking about using the middle school just because of parking. They also did the treasurer's report. So the reimbursement for movie night conferences equals the current balance, and then they're going to follow up to pay buses for the Quabbin trip in the amount of $1,330. And then they did complete the Meadow Farms catalog fundraiser, and they raised $12,729.80. So quite a successful fundraiser there, and it looks like they're planning lots of exciting fundraisers to come. They have also discussed that perhaps thinking about fundraisers that are more of an experience fundraiser versus families having to buy a thing or something. So they're looking at other available options. So that sounds like there's some exciting things to come there. And then looking at upcoming events, there was discussion that the Polar Shop does take a lot of time, effort, and money. So they're looking at probably a pancake breakfast with Winter Wonderland theme. Sounds like that's a bit TBD in terms of being confirmed. So they're placing requests and will follow up if all of that comes to fruition. And then, finally, there was a suggestion from parents that PTO, celebrates teachers at the end of the year. So I will look forward to hearing more about that when it comes. And you've heard more than enough from me, but the next one is mine as well. The Student Advisory Council, so Colby and I will be meeting next Wednesday to figure out the exact shape of what that should look like, as well as digging into, policy and how to make sure that that gets applied. Legislative representative, do you have any updates for us? That's Danielle. Oh, that's Danielle. I do not have Danielle's update tonight, so you are done hearing from me. So we'll take a quick break from me. Are there any school committee comments tonight? Sean?
Yeah, can I please put in a request for that financial analysis on newly created positions and shifts of money several days prior to the next committee meeting? Absolutely. Thank you.
Anything else? So I did have a couple quick things. One is just, Templeton Town meeting was last night. I did want to follow up, because there was some discussion at the beginning of this year about the, student who is accepted to the Norfolk Aggie School. That did get put on, last night's articles, and both the article for the school tuition and the article for transportation were approved by the town as per state law. And so that was pretty quick and easy, but I just wanted to make sure that I followed up on that was the conclusion of that particular item. The other thing I wanted to recognize is the middle school is doing an absolutely fantastic Spirit Week. So if you haven't heard about it, definitely take a look at the newsletters that are coming out from the middle school. Every day there's a different dress up challenge, but in addition, there's also, I'm gonna not well summarize it, but kindness challenge. I know that the students have been encouraged to say hello to 5 students they've never spoken to before. I believe today's challenge was writing a thank you note. And so, each day kids can earn beads, is essentially what I'm understanding, and bling.
And it's quite impressive when your middle schooler comes home with all her bling. These are her bling.
So just wanted to give a shout out. That's just such a fantastic idea. My middle schooler is very excited about it. Sounds like yours is as well. And so I don't know whose brainchild that was, but it's pretty fabulous and really exciting to see. Oh, excellent. Well, please pass along our compliments. Okay, no correspondence. Our next meeting will be Thursday, December 14th at 5:30 p.m. in the Kiva, and since we already did executive session, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.